Welcome back to the DrupalEasy podcast. This is season 16, episode number 1. As always, it's great to be back, and we have a great set of episodes planned for the next few weeks. The theme of season 16 is making Drupal development easier. To start us off in today's episode, we'll be talking with DrupalEasy podcast originals, Andrew Riley and Ryan Price, about all of our favorite Drupal things that we want for Christmas. Before we get to that interview, let me tell you a little bit about DrupalEasy's long-form professional module development course. Now, this course encompasses 90 hours of training over 15 weeks, where we meet twice a week. We learn developer tools like PHPCS, PHPStan, Xdebug, all while using the VS Code or PHP Storm IDEs and Lando or DDev. Once we start talking about Drupal development, we'll be developing custom plugins, custom services, dependency injection, using the Queue API, the Batch API, and lots of object-oriented PHP coding. We'll also be covering caching, custom drush commands, and writing plenty of PHP unit tests all throughout the course. The next semester begins January 30th. Check it out at drupaleasy.com/PMD. Welcome back to the DrupalEasy podcast. Andrew and Ryan, it's been a beat since we've last had either of you on.
What are you talking about? I just took a nap. It's only been like a day.
Your beard looks fantastic, by the way. It's like 7 feet long at this point. So for those of you who aren't aware, myself and Andrew and Ryan were the founders, the originators, the three original hosts of the DrupalEasy podcast so many years ago. I should have looked.
A lot of them.
Is this season 16 because this is the 16th year of the podcast?
Well, when I switched the format to seasons, which was season 14. That was indeed the 14th year of the podcast, I believe. But I do 2 seasons a year, so it's not going to keep up with the year. So I believe this might be the 15th year.
You're going to have to switch to semantic versioning because this is going to hurt my brain otherwise.
No. We do 2 seasons a year, each of 6 episodes. And here we are in season 16.
Or at least come up with like a, Ubuntu style naming convention. Like this one will be the Wild Wombat edition.
Oh, yes. Right.
And
name them all after some. I got to pick a theme for, in addition to picking a theme for each season, now I have to pick a theme to name all of the seasons.
Right. And
totally
do like, Stan Lee style, where everything has to be alliterative, obviously.
All right. Well, let's get into it because this is our holiday episode where we are going to make our picks of our favorite things about Drupal, or really all we want for a Drupal Christmas. So things that we would like Drupal to have. I asked both of you to come up with a list of 3 items that were achievable, not super pie in the sky. I would like Drupal to make me a sandwich type of thing. And I believe we've achieved that goal because I can see everyone's answers in a rundown. But let's get going. First, we'll start with you, Andrew. So reintroduce yourself, first of all. What do you do? Who are you? And then give us one of your 3 things.
So I'm Andrew Riley. I'm a manager over at Red Hat, and we actually have a pretty large Drupal department. So we're a pretty big Drupal shop, despite not being a shop. And I've been using Drupal for a long time, although recently I haven't been as much hands-on keyboard, but I still have multiple teams working on it and maintaining modules. So I get to kind of, look into the Drupal world every so often.
Alrighty. So what is your first wish for Drupal Christmas?
Okay, we'll skip over the whole world peace thing and all that kind of stuff. I would love a long-term support release of Drupal. Now, you might be thinking Drupal 7 is that for right now, but we're going to need another Drupal 7 eventually. The annual, 8 to 9 to 10 is getting to be a little bit grindy now that we're, 3-ish years in. It's been actually different than that, but I'll say 3 years in, and it gets kind of exhausting after a while.
Well, I think it's actually every 2 years that we're getting a major. It
Really? It
seems like
feels
it's
like
less.
3.
It does.
Yeah.
It does seem like it's a lot faster than that. So it sounds like from an organizational standpoint, to have a long-term support release of Drupal would, save money. Save money, save developer time? Like, what's the reason behind that wish?
Yeah, save money, save developer time. And I mean, if you have a site that doesn't have a lot of modifications and you're just, using off the shelf modules and that type of thing, it's not a lot of work, but it's still, I would say, slightly worrisome. Even if you're a simple site, but you count on some contrib module and they don't upgrade. If you don't have technical chops, you now have a deadline slowly moving towards you. And if that module doesn't go to the next version, you're going to have to figure something out.
So what happens when there's a dependency that is end of lifed while, during this long-term support?
Like, give me an example of the dependency.
So a Symfony component, for example, right? So I think the thing that Andrew's asking for is predictability.
Yeah.
But if you use the word stability, then you have to start thinking about outside projects that Drupal depends on, right?
Yeah.
What if left pad gets deprecated? Then what do we do?
Yeah. And it's hard with it all interconnected. And maybe even if it was just security releases, kind of like how we've done with D7 over the past 34 years, that, it just gets security updates. But there's got to be something, because the average person, I don't think, is really upgrading. And we see that with the number of D7 sites that still exist out there.
Ryan, I feel like this wish kind of dovetails nicely with one of your wishes as well. So why don't you reintroduce yourself and give us one of your wishes?
So yeah, my name's Ryan Price, and I have been working on Drupal for quite a while. Drupal 4.6 was my first Drupal. And Mike and Andrew were actually at my very first Drupal meetup a long time ago. And right now I am in between things. I am transitioning, to be announced. I'm pretty sure I know what's happening, but it's not official yet.
So mysterious.
Probably going to be working on a US government website near you. That's the shortest way I could say it.
All right, fantastic.
I've worked with also the Drupal Association on some projects recently, the Discover Drupal program that Mike also works on, and helped out with some of those efforts. And in just the last month, I've also been doing a little bit of contribution to the Backdrop Drupal 7 to Backdrop upgrade project, which is interesting because it is like reusing some code from Backup and Migrate that Ronan sort of like helped them port over to Backdrop. So it's pretty interesting, like entering a time warp, but also using like, what I've learned in the last 7 years or whatever since Drupal 7 has like fallen off of my radar too much, except for that we need to upgrade. But one thing that I've been noticing as I have been using Drupal in the last couple of years is nobody releases a stable 1.0 for their module, or a 2.0 or a whatever 0.0 thing. Everything's stuck in beta or alpha or dev release. And for one thing, that means it gets no security team updates. They don't put the little stamp on it. For another thing, if you work on certain kinds of projects, they say no dev releases. It's a policy set by whomever, and I kind of support that policy. Like, why would I want to use the dev release of something when the dev release is 3 years old? Why are you waiting? And I understand there's like reasons, but why?
Or if it's been out there for 3 years, at least bump it to 1.0, please, people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the big question is why? Is it, it's because it's not done in their head, but in the maintainer's head, that they're waiting to, finish these features that they don't have bandwidth to work on, or they're waiting till the issue queue is clear and there's no more bug reports. Like it is baffling sometimes, especially with some of the projects that, as you said, go on and on and on for months and months. 7-month-long betas or longer is kind of silly.
Yeah. One of my future wish list items has a potential solution.
What can we Oh, well, tell me to stop. Is there anything we can do to incentivize?
Yes, I believe there are a number of things, and I think one is just simply rallying more person hours around some of these projects and increasing the like onboarding ability for how we do contrib projects. I think getting GitLab out there, getting like testable GitLab has been a good like bridge that can be built, but I don't know how much it's being leveraged yet.
Gotcha.
Right? Like we can create branches of things, we can create merge requests without having to be a maintainer, but you can still upload it in a sort of like history preserving fashion. And then someone can come along and they can download your branch, but then also if they tag your branch to their composer file, maybe then you could potentially put in a patch that's going to break their site. So we need something that makes it a little bit easier to be like, I'm forking this project, I'm taking over this project, right? On GitHub, you can just say, I'm creating a fork. This project seems just moving too slow for me. I'm going to fix it for myself. You could, I think, do that if it's just you using it, right? You could copy the Git anywhere you want. That's what GPL allows you to do, provided that you pay attention to the licensing ability of GPL. But to the benefit of the rest of the community, it'd be nice if there was a sort of like low friction way of providing that service, whatever it happens to be.
Let's move on, because I have a feeling we're going to be talking about this a little bit more with the future pick. So I'll start with my first pick, which is anyone who follows me on social media will this will come as no surprise, but a modernized Drupal planet. I love Drupal planet. And there's probably a bunch of people who are listening who have no idea what I'm talking about when I say Drupal planet. But if you go to drupal.org/planet, it is basically a news feed. It's not curated by article, it's curated by author.
By source.
By source, thank you. So the source has to be accepted into the news feed, and on drupal.org/planet are any article that's published by that source. And a lot of times the source it won't be all articles by the source. It'll be articles that are meant to go to Drupal Planet will show up on drupal.org. I got into it, and I think a lot of people who've been in Drupal a long time got into it just via RSS feeds. I still consume it via an RSS feed, and I've never stopped really. It's just part of kind of my daily ritual as I go through, my news feed, and any post that goes on Drupal Planet, I will see almost every day, pretty consistently. And I have found over the past 2-3 years, the quality of Drupal Planet has gone way down. I think there's organizations that are just kind of spamming it, maybe not even on purpose, low quality writing. And it's really, to find the really good nuggets in there is becoming harder and harder. So I'd love to see a modernized Drupal Planet. There's discussions I've been involved with on Slack about, making it something federated and doing something with it where users can up or down vote stories. And then maybe there's a secondary feed that comes out of that. It's kind of like the double curated Drupal Planet list or Drupal Planet feed. But that, for me, I think it was a great resource. It still is a great resource for me to learn Drupal. I read a great article today about a potential, kind of an example of how a security exploit from Drupal 7 could potentially have been exploited. And it was very technical, but it was really super interesting. So I'm constantly learning things from it. But I feel like not as many people are, probably A, because of exposure, and B, because just the signal to noise ratio isn't what it used to be. Andrew.
Yeah, I agree. Well, going back, first of all, everyone, if you don't know RSS, look it up. You should be using it. It should have a resurgence. I still do it. But I've noticed on the planet, there's a lot more marketing heavy posts and things I don't personally care about.
Yes.
So they should actually change it for me, but I'll allow it, I guess, for the rest of the planet.
For you specifically, it shall be changed.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a really good plan for curating Drupal Planet. It's just follow Mike on social media.
Yeah, there's your curator.
I have become more and more outspoken about, stuff on Drupal Planet lately, just because it's the more I get frustrated by it, the more especially, the one thing, and Ryan's probably seen this, is it makes me crazy when the author's name isn't listed on the article.
Yep.
Like,
yep.
Come on.
Or the date.
Yeah. Date would be real nice.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Andrew, number 2.
Okay, next one is a better caching option for large-scale sites in modern Drupal. In the past we used things like Memcache, more modern is Redis, that type of thing to cache outside of the database for large sites, because I know on one of the sites I manage, we tried the database option and it was like 21 gigs of cache in the database. So, but then Memcache, it's kind of gone the way of the dinosaur. Our Redis integration is flagging. It's having issues. It's not really that supported. So kind of what is a good option for a large scale site short of doing full page caching kind of on a server level?
Is Elasticsearch still a thing? Because they have a key value store that you can use, much like Memcache, I believe.
I don't know.
But I don't know if it's still relevant. I haven't used Elasticsearch in a long time.
So Elasticsearch definitely still exists. It's an open source project. You can also buy hosting from the company that makes it.
Right.
What I was going to ask about is like if you were hosting with one of the, bigger like cache providers like Akamai or something like that. A lot of those have object cache solutions now too, right?
Yeah, we're looking for something on premise for all the various different caches that Drupal has.
Right. Red Hat does things the Red Hat, in-house type of way, which I totally support. So I understand the question.
So something that's pluggable directly into Drupal.
Yeah. And we can have in our data center type deal.
Right. Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know. I don't work on a whole lot of, super big sites, or really any for that matter. So I don't, but I'd be curious to know like what folks are using.
Yeah, even just to find out what other sites are using would be kind of good. Because I'm not seeing on Drupal Planet. Come on, Planet.
All right, Ryan, number 2 for you.
Yeah, mine, like we kind of hinted at, is a little bit dovetailing into one of the earlier notes I made, which is more funding for open source project maintainers. This is something that I've been involved with, and then certain things were able to take the wind out of my personal sails, but other people picked up and run with it for a little while, including people like Gus Austin and Jonathan Dagerhart and a few others, is called the Funding Project. It's Drupal.org project funding. And then we created an open collective group that you could donate to and some other spaces like that. The idea was the day that GitHub announced the GitHub sponsors, or exactly what they call it, I think it's called sponsors, they introduced a format where you put a YAML file inside your project in a certain spot. And I said, we should totally have this on Drupal.org. I created a project and I said, well, what's the easiest way to do this on Drupal.org would be just put it on your project page as a field in the project. But I said, why not? Let's go ahead. Let's create the same YAML format. If you just paste it into that field, it will do something. And beyond that, that's my personal, this is a way we could help to solve this problem. It's not the only way to solve this problem, but creating more visibility for people that are looking for funding for their projects, and then also more visibility for the people that are funding those projects. Like if you donate $1 million to the Performing Arts Center, they put your name on the side of the building. Mm-hmm. There's a similar sort of mechanism in open source that are donation supported projects or sponsor related projects where you can do similar things like that. There's some things that are missing from Open Collective specifically, which is like, what if it was when I was working at FFW, they donated X amount of time to the Drupal Association for me to do some of those Discover Drupal projects. That's not a donation as far as Open Collective is concerned, and their platform didn't really have an answer for it. So is there a way to have those contributions, surfaced in a better way that has maybe your logo or the picture of your choice or the link of your choice attached to it? Those things we're pretty sure would incentivize some of these people to donate, or potentially donate into, let's say, a central fund, which now you're creating bureaucracy, but potentially the idea of when I first created the funding was like, oh, what if we could get $10,000 in this fund? Just going to make up a number. And then we say to all projects who have not had a 1.0 release, you can have $100 for creating the 1.0 release. I just made up those two numbers. This would obviously have to have more oversight over it than just what came off the top of my head, but there's possibility of creating something that, kicks the engine into gear a little bit more when it's needed. And hopefully you can save some of the funds for a rainy day for when it's really, really needed. Let's say that somebody's country gets invaded and now all of those developers are really trying to support something. Let's just pretend.
There's so many wrinkles to this.
It's a fraught subject matter.
It's like a Sharpay, this because there's the issue of like the mechanism of payment, right? There's that issue which you mentioned. There's visibility, and it's visibility from the, I want to give money to this. How do I do that? Or, oh, look, I can give money to this project. I did not know that before. I think the other, maybe it might even be like the elephant in the room, I'm mixing metaphors here now, is, to me, it's almost like a paradigm shift has to be made between the folks who are using open source software and the folks that are building open source software, right? Because it's invisible to most people, I think, that, okay, I use Drupal, but, Drupal uses these, 115 dependencies that are open source. And so even if I'm, sponsoring a Drupal event, or I'm a supporting member of the Drupal Association, that money doesn't really trickle down to, forget about like Symfony component developers, but even like Drupal module developers. So there's this weird, place where it's just not known that, whoever's like maintaining the Path Auto module is not getting paid for that.
Yeah, I mean, one really cool thing that happened this year at DrupalCon, if you didn't get to pay attention to it, was called Pitchburgh, where some folks raised money and there was a pitch competition, and they said, please give me money to build new functionality into the sort of like layout builder, right? Was one of the pitches that won. But there were lots of pitches that didn't get enough votes to get the funding that they asked for. But there are people there who have interesting projects that probably are of use to more than just the person who pitched that project, if there were a way to have those projects, get more visibility.
Almost an incubator, if you will.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on, because I could talk about
this could be a whole podcast.
Yeah.
Yes.
It could be a whole series of podcasts.
Exactly. Yeah. So my second wish is more, and I think this is a very low bar, and it's probably already in the works. So I think this is one wish that will definitely come true in 2024, is more marketing efforts like what the Drupal Association recently organized at the giant 70,000 person web summit in Lisbon, Portugal, where there was a Drupal booth, and it was spectacular looking, super modern looking, and it was staffed by folks from the Drupal Association and prominent European Drupalers. And the goal of it was to basically let folks know that Drupal is still here. It's modern, it's relevant, and we are ready to do business. And I think that's great, because so often we are talking to ourselves in the Drupal community. There's a phrase for that. We're an echo chamber, where we need to be marketing outside of the community.
Andrew, this is where you say we're an echo chamber.
Echo.
So yeah, I would like more of that. And actually, just today, there was some discussion in the Florida channel about some event happening in Florida, I think after maybe January or February. And that's either in the past or the present, depending on when you're listening to this podcast. about this event, this CMS event, and discussion about if anyone from the Florida area is interested in going, and maybe we can collaborate and come up with some sort of similar thing to promote Drupal while we're there.
Could it be a little bit like Kevin's box of recording things? There's like a community box of setting up the booth, because some of those booth materials, they look real nice if you have them,
right?
But if you don't have them, then it looks kind of like paper plates and plastic cups.
Exactly. Yeah.
We're open source. Yay.
Yeah, I don't know what the Drupal Association has planned for that booth. I'm going to assume that it's going to show up at future events, hopefully sooner rather than later. But it would be great to have some type of traveling Drupal box of for other events.
And I would add, like, having worked the booth at some of these events, that some people come up and they just want to hear the 1-minute pitch. So typing out the 1-minute pitch and putting it onto maybe even a handout.
Sure.
That I can either read off of this handout, I could hand you the thing that has the information, right? And this past DrupalCon in Lille, I think we were talking about Mars, the M&M's people were using Drupal quite a bit. Is that one of the ones they said?
Yeah.
So some of those like recent success stories get highlighted. Maybe it has to get reprinted once a year, that kind of thing. Obviously you could have the default things like stickers and whatnot, but the ones that talk about the impact and talk about the achievements and talk about how this company sponsoring open source has created this new opportunity for everyone, those are the ones that you can't do that with corporate messaging, because all you can say is, we help this customer succeed, not we help this customer succeed and therefore everyone else succeeds, which I think is the big benefit of open source.
And look, from a bit more of a shallow standpoint, the eye candy of a really cool booth helps tremendously, I think. I mean, I'll put the link to an article about the Web Summit Lisbon that I believe has a photo or two of the booth, and it's spectacular. It's makes me very proud to be part of the community to see stuff like that. All right, Andrew, back to you, number 3.
Oh, I don't even know how to bring this one up. It could just be a me problem. But have you ever worked on a really complex site that has translations, content moderation, and scheduled publish, and you put those modules, it's Drupal, there's a module for everything, and they just work together. You put them together, and it utterly destroys your node revisions and the history of it, and they start going crazy, and you start losing things, and things start breaking. Have you ever had that happen?
Is this something that you were working on literally hours ago today? Is that why this is so?
No, actually, I've been working on this for like 2.5 years now.
I can plus one this as well. Yeah.
Yeah, because we have the entity system, and it's been amazing, don't get me wrong. But on some of the lower levels of the entity system, we're still having modules that do similar things, basically fighting each other. And that tends to cause problems. I'm wondering if, I don't want to propose another system, but we definitely need to take a look at that system and how these modules tie into it to hopefully make them play nice together.
Yeah. One thing I would add into this too is like, content staging is something that not every site needs, but as if what people say about Drupal is that it's becoming more enterprise friendly is true, there are a lot more enterprises that want to do content staging. So there's a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy there, that if Drupal was better at this, maybe some of the people that are leaving Drupal wouldn't have to, or some of the people that are, trying to create these, slightly more complex workflows, especially when you have translation added in there, would have a better default answer. Or if you get to the, hey, I want to preview this on my headless site, and I don't want to have to create like a separate content staging website, or maybe I do. There's room for innovation to happen here.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a big one. And not only for enterprise stuff, but for even smaller sites. It's nice to be able to stage some of those things and look, especially if, this isn't your 9-to-5 job. Sometimes you want to see how this is going to play out, and you might not have that, local development environment or a different staging environment. Sometimes you got to do it in production.
Yeah. One client I worked with in the last year was a performing arts center, and the day that their season goes on sale, almost every page on their website changes.
Ooh.
So there's an example of on May 30th, you've got all the stuff from the last 6 months. And on May 31st, now you have all the stuff from the upcoming year that's we're all trying to promote between one day and the next. And that's a really good case for when does content staging matter? Because every one of the shows that they're trying to promote wants to come look at the site before it's ready, before it's public, to say, yep, that represents my show correctly. Thank you for doing that. And thank you for showing me the preview. And it's a real web page instead of like a screenshot, right?
Yep, definitely.
What's your number 3, Ryan?
Yeah, my number 3 is it's similar theme. I think drum beating across my 3 suggestions, if you look at them in order, is resources to run mentoring programs that bring new people into the community or mentor people that are interested in getting involved in open source, or people that are wanting to take over a maintenance of a project or something like that. Discover Drupal program, really great program. Really have nothing bad to say about it, except for that it's not happening this year. And it's not really a bad, it's that the public announcement was we're taking some time to regroup, to rethink things. One of the people that was involved in running it, Vaughn, has moved on to a new job, which is a loss to the Drupal Association and that program. But people can change and people can go get new jobs that are exciting to them. That's allowed. But that program has been life-changing for a handful of people, and it would be great to be able to say it was life-changing for more people.
I agree 100%.
So, let's make some noise about that. I guess we are doing it right now.
I wish I had something to add, but it's a great program. I'm baffled as to why it's been radio silence for a few months now on what the future of that program is, and I can only hope that there is a frenzy of activity going on that you and I are both just unaware of.
Yeah.
All right, I think we're to the last one. So my last one,
it is,
and this one, this is one that I tell a lot of people about, but I have done absolutely nothing about it other than rant every now and then. So it worries me. Well, before I even tell you what to wish, let's go back to something like the Quick Edit module. Remember Quick Edit? I believe that was Drupal 8.
Yeah.
When Quick Edit came out, it was a core module. I don't remember if it was enabled or disabled by default.
Wasn't it just experimental?
Was it experimental at the time? I think it might have been. It became a full module at some point.
Okay.
It left experimental stage. But what it allowed, and the reason I'm bringing this up, because there was a lot of effort put into making Quick Edit work well. And the idea was that you could, from the front end of your website, from the public-facing side of a website, you can click a little pencil icon on just one field of your content and edit that particular field, and only that field, with this cool little JavaScript floating, form widget right there on the public side of your website. Hit a button and boom, it would save. So you would never really leave the public side of your website to go to a full-on node add edit page. You would just be quickly editing fields directly in the front end of your website. Where is Quick Edit now? It's gone. It's been removed from core. There was a lot of effort put into that, and it's gone. I fear the same thing could potentially happen with two very large strategic initiatives in the Drupal community right now, those being Project Browser and automatic updates. They are both wonderful, and they're not out fully yet, but from what I've seen, they work as advertised. There's still some security things that have to be finished up with both of them to make sure it's completely secured end to end. But for the three of us, we won't be using either of these because for the most part, they're not made for developers. They're not made for folks who use Git and Composer every day. These tools are made for someone who wants a Drupal site, doesn't necessarily use the command line, wants to put it on their host somewhere and have that site stay updated with security updates, or be able to hit a button and add the redirect module without having to, go to the command line. And possibly even GASP, I know, do it directly on their production site.
Yeah, GASP. GASP with that one for me.
So my third wish is I think for Project Browser and automatic updates to really succeed, there needs to be, let's just start with one low-cost hosting provider that embraces Project Browser and automatic updates and basically says, you want a Drupal 10 site? Host here, $15, $20 a month, whatever that number is, I have no idea. You don't get a dev site, you don't get we'll back your stuff up, but we fully support Project Browser and automatic updates. This is the place to come if you just want a quick Drupal website that gets backed up. You can add modules, you're a site builder, you can do whatever you want, and you're done.
And I could see that lowering the cost of support for them.
Yeah.
If you're just in Drupal on a point and click, you don't have people uploading things to the wrong spot, wrong file extension, running that crazy composer thing.
Otherwise, what has, all this time that has been invested in these projects, both volunteer time as well as paid contributor time, it worries me that there is no plan for how these tools are really going to be leveraged to, achieve the wider goals of the Drupal community, right? We want to bring more people in. How do we bring more people in? We need a lower cost entry or a simpler entry. Well, we have the tools for it. We just don't have the thing to put it all together. So I've mentioned this to folks in the Drupal Association and folks behind who are working on Project Browser and automatic updates. No one has really given me, I don't think anyone's really thought about it that much yet. But that's my third wish.
Well, and this seems like one of those things that, it's for, the people who aren't as technical, it kind of combats that Drupal is for enterprise only sentiment that I've heard thrown around. But we also kind of has that as a shadow. If hosting companies say, well, it's only for enterprise, so it's going to be $2 million a month to host this site, they're probably never going to get this, and we're probably not going to get that groundswell that we need to carry on projects like Project Browser and automatic updates, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so this is your appeal. I get it.
Yeah, this is going to solve, or it's going to achieve, I believe, a bunch of goals that the community has verbalized over the past few years. Right? We want to make Drupal easier to use. So, okay, it's easier to use, but we still need some place to host it because, you can't really use Project Browser and automatic updates on, the big three Drupal hosting platforms right now.
And I would argue the big three Drupal hosting platforms are not where you go for affordable hosting either.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's not like a $25 a month plan.
No.
Last time I checked.
No. So I would love to see something like that in the next year to fully embrace these big, beautiful Drupal projects that, so many people have been working their butts off on.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if there's a blog post series in here somewhere, like the, use Project Browser on Bluehost, right? That somebody could sit down and write, and Rackspace and HostGator in one of those.
It just seems like that this is an opportunity for a hosting company to get involved and be able to offer something that at first no one else is going to be able to offer. So, all right. Anyway, that's it. That is our 9 wishes, 3 each. I thrilled that the two of you were available and made time to do this. And I miss hanging out with you both on a bi-weekly basis. I think I see both of you about once, maybe twice a year.
Yep.
In person, which is kind of sad, but Anyway, thanks for taking the time to come back and reminisce, and hopefully we'll see you again on a future episode of the DrupalEasy podcast. Thanks for listening to the DrupalEasy podcast. Don't forget to check out all of our long-form Drupal training courses at DrupalEasy.com, and stay tuned for the next episode of the DrupalEasy podcast. See ya!